Hi, we have another question from the Dunbar Academy mailbag. This one is from Ian. That's not me. This is the owner of a bull terrier. I've been working on loose leash walking, heeling, and she's pretty good at it until she goes into sniff mode. She heels perfectly and gives me eye contact while working, but only when I have treats on me. If I put my hand in my pocket, she looks at me attentively in a perfect heel until she realizes that she isn't getting a treat, and then she goes about her business. How do I phase out the treats and get her to heel reliably without treats? Well, Ian, dogs have to learn two things about food. One is, just because the owner has it doesn't mean to say the dog's going to get it anytime soon or at all. And secondly, just because the owner doesn't have it doesn't mean to say the dog's not going to get food. So this, to me, the use of food or the continued use of food is the biggest problem in dog training, and what was once luring and rewarding has changed into bribing. And the big difference there is we lure a willing dog to show him what we want him to do, and we reward him then for doing it. We bribe an unwilling dog to act against his will. He wants to play now, he wants to sniff, you want him to heel. So we have to use food to teach the dog what to do, but then we have to phase out lure so it's not necessary to get him to do it. So now we're only using food as a reward, then we have to phase out food as a reward. You know, a trained dog, to me, is not trained until he's under reliable verbal control, off leash, at a distance, when distracted, and without the continued need of any training aid whatsoever. So food is very useful, but at the moment it is the biggest problem in dog training, the continued use of food as bribes. And all owners find out what you do. You don't have the food, they turn off the compliance. So let's start with the first thing. That we want the dog to learn a little bit of impulse control, that just because you have food doesn't mean to say he's going to get it. You want to ask more for less. So let's turn heeling into a sit, heel, sit sequence with a one step. So sit, one step, sit again. Okay, was it successful? If so, reward your dog. Next time, go for 2 steps, and then 3, then 5, then 8, then 10, then 20. And then the reward becomes go sniff. I mean, 20 steps of heeling is enough to cross the street. Okay, so you're gradually expanding the time or delaying giving the food reward. Again, people are just giving food willy-nilly. Everything the dog does, he gets food. So of course the obedience will break down when you don't have it. So ask more for less, put the dog on a differential reinforcement. Now we can try a bit of trickery. The second thing you want to teach your dog is, just because you don't have food doesn't mean to say the dog isn't going to get any. So like, I did some work with my second Malamute Phoenix, and then I went into the living room and I put some treats out. One on the mantelpiece, one in a bookcase. I went down to the park and I hid a number of treats in the crook of branches in trees. And then I went and washed my hands, put on a clean shirt and jacket, no smell of food whatsoever. And then I started training her around the house. I went to the fireplace, I said, "Feeny, come here." And she was, pretty keen. Most of the time she paid attention, but she knew I hadn't got food on me. She came, she sat. I said, "Good girl, Feeny, who's a very good girl. Good dog, have a treat." And it was like the expression on her face was, and she came up and she sniffed my pockets and sniffed me again. I went to a different room, called her, another treat magically appears. But it was when we went down to the park that it just cracked me up. I went over to this tree and I called her, big long recall. This was like a 40-yard recall, and she comes up. She knows I haven't got food on me. She's given me a nose vacuuming sniff check, and then she comes and sits. I put my hand up to the tree and I pull down a treat and I give it to her. She takes the treat. She looks up at the tree. From that day on, every time we came to this park, she would check out the treat to see whether the treats were blooming yet and, ripe for plucking. So you work with no treats on you. What we do in classes, we have a treat bag table, a bait bag table in the middle of the room. Bait bags off in the middle of the room. Whenever your dog does something good, you can say, good dog, good dog, good dog, walk to the table and get a treat for the dog. You can chain the good behavior to the treat, but you aren't having the treats on you because it will become a crutch and then your dog's behavior will break down. Another thing I'm doing at the moment with, been working with a number of assistance dogs where their recalls have broken down. I go out with an assistant, they have all the treats. And first they just stand there as a distraction, a kind of passive distraction. You know, I don't have treats, they have treats. But then as training progresses, they actively try to keep the dog away from me with the treats. My job is I'm going to call the dog. And to be honest, I'm not a great dog trainer in a lot of things, but I never give up. I'm going to call that dog, and when he comes, I'm going to say, good dog. I'm going to grab his collar, say, good dog, and that's the cue for my assistant to run up and give 5 treats. And then they go off again. I have to call the dog away from the person with treats. This is just basically park training. There's a children's picnic and you've got a Labrador. Come on, you've got to be able to call the dog away from the party with all the treats. So that's the way I would go. Obviously, these are short answers to complicated questions. You know, with this one, I could go on and on and on, the phasing out of food. And it's why I just uploaded a huge section in our trainers behavior program on Dunbar Academy. This is a free program, so check it out and look phasing out food lures and phasing out food rewards. Thank you, Ian. Good question.